Happy Thursday. Let me know if you can see me. Let me know if it's spotty for you or if it's good. Hello, I am freezing. All right, everybody, it's just about 5 o'clock. I am Mary from Mary's Heirloom Seeds, and I try to go live here every Thursday. Let me just see if I can see where you're at. I don't know if I'm seeing comments. There we go. There we go. All right, so if you're just joining me for the first time, welcome. If you are a regular, welcome back. I try to go live, like I said, every Thursday. It's 5 p.m. Central Time here. Krista said, what happened to those warm days? I know. So it's so funny. If you look back at my last couple weeks live, I'm finally able to go live outside because we actually have sunlight or something at 5 o'clock instead of being pitch black. 1 week I'm in a t-shirt, and the next week I'm in, hey Shirley, the next one I'm in a sweatshirt, and today I'm in my heavy jacket, my boots, my scarf. We had 81 degrees this week, and now it is cold. I want to say it was like 48 was the low today, and it's low 50s right now. So yes, I am cold. But my garden is excited. Behind me, you can see this bed directly behind me. I'm half clearing out. The onions stay, but some of the weeds and some of the greens there go to the chickens. The back there is full of kohlrabi, so I'm super excited to be eating some of those pretty soon. Today's topic, hey Kelly, thanks for joining us. Today's topic is cool weather crops to plant. Hey Kathleen. But I'm going to go one step further. Hey Serena, I'm going to go one step further. Hey Nancy, and I'm going to share a couple of seed varieties that can germinate in cooler temperatures. So we have cool weather crops. Hey Jolene, it's cold where you are too, sleeting in southern Oklahoma. We had a chance of rain today and it did not rain, so I'm super excited that I'm able to actually come out here and see you guys in the garden. So this garden bed is getting pulled out. That garden bed right there has already been cleared, and you can see a funky layer. That's my mountain flower root boost on top of there. So I've got new soil that's going to be topped off for that as well. Christine says a foot of snow there. No, thank you. We didn't really get much snow here this year. We got like a little teeny dusting one day and that was it. So seeds typically germinate in a range of temperatures, and it's a wide range. I mean, we're talking 40 degrees to 80 degrees. Hey, David at Patriots Rabbitry, thanks for joining us. So that's a major swing in temperatures. Hey, Cindy, 40 degrees to 80 degrees. So your hot peppers, they need warm soil, and that's where that 80 degrees comes from. It's actually like 75 to 80 degrees for soil temperature. Remember, we're not talking about ambient temperature, we're talking about soil temperature. So peas, for example, peas will germinate in soil as low as 40 degrees, but their optimal temperature for their soil is more like 75 degrees. So that means, hey Jill, so that means if you're planting pea seeds, we're not talking about southern peas, we're talking about garden peas, snap peas, English peas. If your soil, hey Moon Bladen as well, if your soil is cold, and it's say 40 degrees is your soil temperature, remember, we had 80 degrees, so my soil is warmer now than it was a couple weeks ago before the temperature warmed up. So if your soil is cold, it's going to take longer for some of your seeds to germinate, but that doesn't mean you can't plant. So just because your soil temperature is cooler than optimal doesn't necessarily mean you can't plant yet. Now, I'm not talking about transplanting. I am not going to be transplanting tomato seedlings, for example, in cold soil or even outside right now, because it needs to be much warmer for me to be transplanting tomatoes outside. But we're talking about cool weather crops, and tomatoes are not on that list. So some cool weather crops, I'll just rattle a couple off for you, are going to be broccoli, cauliflower, turnips, rutabaga, Brussels sprouts. I have a whole list. Lettuce, kohlrabi like you see behind me here, bunching onions like you see behind me in this first bed, peas, Swiss chard, kale, cabbage, and I'm gonna end up talking about some of these as well when I discuss specific varieties that can germinate in cooler soil temperatures. Cilantro's on the list, spinach is on the list. So that's just a handful of specifically cool weather crops. So in the description section of this video, celery, thank you very much as well. In the description section of this video is my comprehensive planting guide. It's a link. You just click that link and there's a whole list of specific varieties. You don't even need to have it emailed to you. It's in the description section of this video. And you'll also find a list of cool weather crops. They're fall planted crops, cool weather crops, however you want to look at it. Cindy says you're awesome. Thank you so much. So those are just a handful. Celery, Inga mentioned as well. Thank you very much. Those are cool weather crops. So those are ones that'll do well. And that's not all of them. That's just off the top of my head, what I could rattle off for you. But there's some easier ones to grow and there's some more difficult ones to grow. Celery is probably the easiest. If you don't follow me on Facebook, I added in the community section on my YouTube channel, I reposted about my spinach seeds. Now, spinach, beets, I forgot about those. Spinach seeds don't usually store very well. So it is a good idea to either not use older seeds or to overseed when you are planting old seeds. Now, we don't sell old seeds, but I use them in my own garden for my own personal collection. So I went ahead and planted two-year-old spinach seeds, not 24, not 23, but 22. So I planted those and I thought, well, I'll do 2 or 3 seeds per hole. That way, if I have spotty germination, I'll at least have a good solid bed of spinach. Well, those seeds are pretty awesome because all those seeds germinated and I had a bunch of extra seedlings. So I'm thinning those seedlings and I added some tips for thinning your seedlings in the community section here on my YouTube channel. So definitely check that out if you are thinning seeds or if you're planting some spinach, maybe you're planting some old seeds, that would be a really helpful tip for you. So now I'm going to talk about specific seeds that grow or germinate in cooler soil. If you're not sure about what your soil temperature is, they do have specific temperature gauges for your soil. I kind of just go by feel. Not today when it's 50 degrees, but the other day when it was 80 degrees, it was really nice and warm. And I was running through my hands through it. I was pulling all these plants and weeds and greenery. I told you in one of my last videos that I planted like extra beds for my chickens because I want to be able to cut back on some of my food, my feed bill. So that's what some of these are. I got catnip growing here, coming back to life, I should say, because catnip is one of the herbs I discussed this week that is a perennial. So I can even feed them some of my catnip as well. Now, so if your soil is cold and you're planting seeds, yes, it might take a little longer. So for example, if your soil is 40 degrees and you're planting pea seeds, it may take a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks on peas, for example, whereas if your soil is at optimum temperature, which is like 70 degrees, 75 degrees, you might have peas popping out of the soil in 2, 3, 4 days. So it can slow the germination of your seeds, but it's not necessarily a deal breaker if you're doing it. Inga says, I always feel like I'm murdering plants when I'm thinning. Somebody said that on my Facebook post as well. But eat the thinnings. So beets, radish, lettuce, spinach, those are some of my favorite thinnings because it's like it's a microgreen. I mean, it's no different than what people grow, alfalfa sprouts or microgreens. It's just, thinning in your garden. And especially if you're wanting to make sure you have the best harvest, you do want to thin. So someone asked on the thinning post, well, what happens if you don't thin? Sorry, I'm getting a little off topic, but oh well. I'll get back to the specific varieties that grow, that germinate well or better than some of the others in cool weather. But so, sorry, totally getting sidetracked here. Someone asked, what happens if you didn't thin them? And what happens generally is you will have overcrowding, and you might get stunted. Say, for example, you might get a stunted plant of your spinach, and it won't produce as much as it could if you had thinned it and gave it some air. The other option is it may actually develop some sort of disease. Say, for example, not specifically, but for example, maybe something like powdery mildew, because there isn't enough airflow for those leaves because they're squished together. And there is not enough airflow, and that happens a lot with, say, tomatoes and squash. If they're planted too close together, there's not enough airflow and they can develop diseases. So that's why we're thinning, as frustrating as it might be. To thin those seedlings, it is important. All right, so spinach. We're going to start with spinach since that was the kind of the segue into it. Spinach is exceptionally tolerant of cooler soils compared to some of the others. It can germinate in soils as low as 35 degrees. So that's a really good one. But it is optimal soil temperature is 45 to 65. So even if it's cold in your soil, as long as it's not frozen, you might still be able to plant and get them to germinate. So especially for me, it's gonna be hot again. Hot. I mean, it was 81 degrees the other day, so it's gonna be hot again. So of course, I planted spinach. I want to say I planted spinach seeds on February 14th, and they're already up. They're already sprouted. They're already happy, and I'm already thinning those so that we can eat some of them. If you haven't already, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. So spinach is the first one on my list that does really well in cooler soil temperatures. So that's why I mentioned it as well. Let's see, is spinach an okay companion with my elephant garlic? I think so, yes. As other root crops are not a good idea for companions for garlic, but lettuce, green varieties are great. I would steer clear of something like a Swiss chard, which is in the beet family. But spinach, lettuce is a great option. Arugula is another one for our cool weather crops that do exceptionally well with colder soil temperatures. Now, arugula thrives in a wide range. I mean, it is a little more heat tolerant, it is a little more cool tolerant, and the thumbnail that I use for this video is actually wild arugula that I've got growing in containers on the back side of this garden. Is it any spinach? Inga says. So yes, I would say except for Malabar spinach, because Malabar spinach is not the same as the regular spinach. But the spinach that I took a picture of and shared is giant noble spinach. But America spinach and Bloomsdale spinach, both of those will do really well in cooler temperatures. Patriots Rabbitry says, I started everything doing the winter sowing method this year, and your tomatoes are already 4 inches tall. Awesome. And you're in a new spot in Florida, so your temperatures are going to be a little warmer than those of us in Texas, or colder temperatures like Idaho and Montana, where or New York, where you still have snow on the ground. So that's awesome, David. I'm happy to hear that. So arugula can actually germinate in temperatures between 80 degrees and 40 degrees. So again, that's a gigantic swing. So you're talking about cool weather, you're talking about warm weather, but arugula does really well. My wild arugula survived 9 degrees. Hey, Kim, thanks for joining us. It was 9 degrees here. It was only for a day, and it was 11 degrees the next day. But that arugula survived all of the arugula in the containers survived. So that's pretty awesome. Hey, thanks, Alicia, thanks for joining us. So the topic tonight is cool weather crops to grow. But I'm also adding a little bit here, and we're doing cool weather crops that will germinate in cooler temperatures. So we started with spinach, And then we said arugula. And next is radish. I love radish. I absolutely love radish. We talked about it in my seed starting class this week. By the way, if you're local, I highly recommend checking out some of the classes that I've done. I was at Bob Wells Nursery in Mineola. I did the extension office for Van Zandt County, for our county, this Wednesday. And then when let's see what else. I'm going to be in Longview on Saturday. Serena, since you have trouble with hearing, I would suggest that you send me an email. It's mary@marysheirloomseeds.com and ask your questions there. That way I can answer them personally to you. Hey, Matt Farms, thanks for joining us. So radishes are another one. They can germinate in soil temperatures as low as 40 degrees. That's a good one for me. Sorry, got a bug. Now optimal temperature for radishes is going to be about 55 to 80 degrees. So that's again a broad range, but they can germinate in temperatures as low as 40 degrees. So radish is a really good one that I will be starting this week. I should say that I will be adding more into the garden this week, because I do what's called succession planting with a lot of the crops that I'm mentioning today. Because radish, for example, you harvest it and you're done. Carrots are not on my list. Carrots are a cool weather crop, but they are not necessarily on my list of varieties that germinate in colder temperatures. So radishes, again, optimal is like 55 to 80, but they can germinate in temperatures as low as 40. So I mentioned succession planting, and that is just simply planting at different intervals so that you're harvesting over a longer period of time. I don't know about you, but maybe you don't need 200 radishes right now, but maybe you want to plant 50 radishes today and 50 radishes in a week or two, 50 radishes in a week or two after that. And that's called succession planting, so that you're harvesting over a longer period of time. Now, for things like Swiss chard, where you're harvesting the outer leaves, not the entire plant, it's not as necessary. But say like bush beans, those are not cold tolerant, but you can stagger your planting so that you're not harvesting all of your beans at the same time. You're harvesting them at different intervals throughout the spring or throughout the summer or the fall. Beans are fantastic, bush beans in particular, because you can plant a spring crop, a summer crop, and a fall crop and have a great harvest throughout the year. Now, cilantro is next on my list of varieties that can be planted in cooler soil. Let's see, optimal germination temperature is between 55 and 80 again for cilantro, but they can germinate in soil temperatures as low as 40 or 45. So again, if you're looking for something to start planting, even though it's a little cooler outside, but your soil is not frozen, these are some varieties that would do really well for you. Let's see, pak choi, cabbage, Chinese cabbage. I love it. People call it bok choy, pak choy. The spelling is, there's numerous spellings, but that is another one that, again, can be planted if you have cooler soil. Sorry, I'm distracted because I'm cold. Pak choi cabbage can be planted again in temperatures as low as 45 degrees in your soil. Optimal temperature is like 55 degrees, but again, you can plant it as early as 45, excuse me. Krista says, I found that cilantro does better in cooler temperatures for me. Absolutely. So you think about cilantro and you're like, summer salsa, right? Unfortunately, no. Cilantro is a cool weather crop. Once it gets to about 80 degrees outside, it generally bolts. So and we're in Texas, we're in East Texas. Krista, you're in East Texas, so am I. So if you are planting a salsa garden, sometimes that cilantro is a little tough to get. So what I do for my cilantro in the summertime or in warmer times is I plant it in my shade garden. The greens that I just planted, those are all in my shade garden, and I Unfortunately, I can't go live in my shade garden because it's way too far out and I get absolutely zero I get zero reception over there. So maybe I'll film a video at a later time and share it with you guys, so that you can actually see my shade garden. It gets dappled sunlight for half the year or half the day. It has direct sunlight for a little bit. So I know it's cilantro's, it's a fickle thing. But you can get away with growing in the summertime. I actually have cilantro growing like a weed in my garden, not in my garden, but outside my garden. Parsley, I'll mention that in just a second. It self seeds really well. So, I have it growing like weeds. So Inga says parsley does good in cool weather too, right? And the answer to that is absolutely. I've got a parsley plant over there it's in its second year now. It survived cold weather and then it came back nice and green once we were past our freezing temperatures. So yes, parsley is another cool weather crop that's a good one as well. I'm sorry, I forgot to include some of the herbs. The only one I thought about was cilantro, because off the top of my head, I don't always think about parsley. Hey, Rebel Canners, thanks for joining us. So kale is another one. Tonight we're talking about cool weather crops, but specifically I'm narrowing it down to varieties that do exceptionally well in cooler temperatured soil, not just the ambient temperature, but the inside temperature. So kale and some of the other brassicas, they can germinate, the seeds can germinate in soil temperatures as low as 40. Now, again, keeping in mind that optimal germination temperature is going to be between 60 and 75. So you see the warmer trends basically for the optimal germination. And then you've got almost 15, 20 degrees swing in the opposite, in the down direction of cooler soil temperatures. So that's kind of cool. Again, this isn't freezing temperatures, unfortunately. We're not really talking about winter sowing, but we are talking about cooler temperatures in your soil. I got critters everywhere. Totally distracted, but that's okay. And then, so kale is the last on my list of varieties that, this isn't the be all end all list. This is not the only varieties, but this is just gives you a good start. Swiss chard is the last on my list. So Swiss chard also can germinate in soil temperatures closer to the 50 degrees, even though optimal temperature is about 65 to 75, almost 80. The cool thing about Swiss chard, again, it's one that you've got to thin because those seeds are actually a bunch of seeds. So it's a cluster, I call it. You could call it a bunch, a cluster, whatever. But each one of those seeds might be potentially 2 or 3 plants. So another one that's important to start thinning so that you don't overcrowd your Swiss chard. Swiss chard can actually grow 2 years. I've had a plant that lasted 2 years. It withstood a mild winter, not necessarily freezing temperatures in winter. And I harvested the next year, which was awesome. Let's see. Urban Harbor says, just ordered some basil seeds. Super excited. Awesome to hear that as well. And then beets also are very similar with Swiss chard, same family again. One has the leafy greens on the top, which is your Swiss chard, and then one has the bulb, the root under the soil, and that's your beets. So those are also seeds where it's a cluster of seeds, not just one single seed is one beet. You might get a couple beets. So again, you might need to thin. So if you don't know about thinning, check out the community section here on my YouTube channel, because I did just a short little explanation of my tips for thinning your seedlings. Alrighty, everybody. So tonight's topic was cool weather crops to plant. I hope that it was helpful for you. In the description section of this video, you'll find a link to sign up for my email. If you haven't signed up for my email, you might be missing out on some awesome stuff. Some good ideas and information. Thank you very much. I appreciate it for your positive feedback. I always appreciate it. But in the comprehensive planting guide, you will find tons of information. Most of the questions I get can be answered with one or more of the articles that I've already written. But if you can't find the answer, send me an email. I will always answer questions as quickly as I can. My email is mary@marysheirloomseeds.com. And if you send me an email and you don't see a response, check your spam folder, because unfortunately, that's how it happens sometimes. Alrighty, everybody. I'm Mary from Mary's Heirloom Seeds, signing off, and happy planting.